Hey,
Hey,
everybody. How are you? Welcome to the Lighthouse podcast. We had a little bit of a blip today. Unfortunately, Mr. Giovanni Martinez got caught up at the bank, but I have something really cool for you guys. Really great friend of mine, Jiu-Jitsu brown belt out of Zia in New Mexico. Jamie Tierney, for those of you who remember, he actually came up to my gym in Big Bear for a whole month. Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to see you. How you been?
I'm doing good. It's been a wow. When did we see each other last? That
It's
was
been yeah,
April,
it was April. Yeah, I was out
almost
there
a year.
for the month of April. Yeah, it was a good time. Really great training environment, and it was great to meet you and members of your family. And I really enjoyed being out there and getting to train and learn from different people.
That was a lot of fun having you up. For those of you who don't know, I'll definitely let you take the reins on talking a little bit about your background. But Jamie's really cool. Jamie worked for Border Patrol for a while. He was a use of force instructor. And so when he came up to Big Bear, he showed us some really cool stuff and taught a lot of the classes and was helping out for a while I was just recovering from having a baby. So it was just a really cool time. But I feel like it would be cool for people to know a little bit about your story because you're a very unique person and you have a very unique story.
Oh, well,
So
thank you.
I know you don't have a lot of time, but I figure with the time we have, I'll let you shoot away.
Yeah, I actually have a jujitsu class. I'm going to be heading off to in about 20 minutes, but I'm happy to spend some time talking to you. Yeah, I worked for the Border Patrol for just a little over 25 years, about 25 and a half years. And I that was my exposure to jujitsu. Like I grew up with a boxing background. My dad was a pretty accomplished boxer. And I was good enough to know I wasn't really good at boxing, but I mean, I know my way around a boxing ring, and
Yeah.
I never had any ground fighting experience whatsoever. I didn't think it was something that I needed. I felt confident enough in what I could do. And it wasn't until years later I'm 51 right now. I found jujitsu really late in life. I was 36, and I knew what it was, and I had an awareness of it, but I really didn't. I didn't have an appeal to it, and I didn't feel a need for it. And when they integrated that system heavily into our use of force program, we're talking like about 20 years ago when law enforcement started paying attention to jujitsu.
Yeah.
I went to a class and it was like, I'm not a huge guy. I'm 5'10", 185 pounds, just like your average size guy. I mean, the only thing I could say about myself is I'm reasonably fit. And there was one of the instructors who I think was just a purple belt at the time, a pretty accomplished purple belt. He's a black belt now and long retired, but uh, he was 140 pounds and he just did whatever he wanted with me and with a bunch of dudes that were a lot bigger. And
Yeah.
everyone in the class had either one or the other reaction. They either thought like me, where like, wow, this is really cool. This is like a superpower. I want to learn how to do this. Or their reaction was, I don't like this. I'm not in control of what's going on. I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So that was my exposure to it, and I just thought it was something that really um, made your doing your job as a first responder, even if you're not law enforcement, if you're just like a paramedic. I was
That part.
talking to a colleague of mine not too long ago about that. Like, maybe you're not necessarily trying to defend yourself from somebody who is aggressive, but a lot of time you have to control somebody who's combative, or maybe they're not entirely conscious of what they're doing. And it's been a really great enhancer to being able to do your job and being able to do it effectively. And then for me, it just took on a life of its own. Like I'm now into jujitsu just for the love of the game. It's not about law enforcement. Like I said, I retired, and that's what I've gone on to do. Like I've just been taking up a role teaching it and training people in that and firearms instruction.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And I remember back when we were hanging out, we were both perps and now we're both brownies, right? So
Yeah,
do you want to
we went
tell
up
me a
together.
little bit? I want to know a little bit about. I remember we had a conversation about this and about the difference in how the training environment changed for you when you became a
Yeah,
brown belt.
I did find it a profound difference. Like, first of all, like I was pleasantly surprised to be promoted. I got promoted. It's what about the same time, about 6 7 months ago.
Yeah,
I think it was in July I got promoted, and I as any other promotion, you have that imposter syndrome and that I'm not ready for it and I'm comfortable where I am, but you're also, kind of feel blessed and complimented by your instructor to appreciate that they think you're at that level. But
yes,
around your training partners, And I train with a really large group of people. Like we only have about 35, 40 adult students at my school, but we have we have an agreement with a bunch of schools in the association that we all do open mats and we all train together. So I
Nice.
pretty much have a group of about 60, maybe 50, 60 adult students I train with. So it's a pretty broad range of people.
Nice.
And one of the things I found was like when they got promoted, like a lot of them treat you differently. And I don't mean in a bad way, but it's strange. Like there was people before that like would get tapped out by you once in a while, or they would, and they'd fight a lot harder because it's like, oh well, he's a brown belt now, and like I used to catch him once in a while. Now, like if it was one thing to catch him as a purple belt, but if I'm tapping him out as a brown belt, that's even better. And I had the other reaction with some people where they were people that used to fight me tooth and nail to not get submitted, and now it's kind of like, yeah, I'll let them submit me because it's not as shameful to get submitted for like a purple belt.
So true.
I was curious if you had the same experience also.
Yes, there's been a polarity. It's either one way or the other. I've had a lot of like blue belt guys come up to me maybe after having just been steamrolled by like a bigger brown or whatever, and that's what they're used to. And so then they come at me out the gates and I have to kind of like, whoa, we're just chilling here. And then they'll realize like, and then they'll kind of turn it down, or they'll just be like, don't kill me. And they're just kind of like on their back, like just like do whatever you want. So I did notice a shift also. It was either people were going way harder or just kind of like submitting because it didn't, I'm tired anyway. She's brown. It's okay.
Yeah, there's no shame. There's no shame in this,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them, like, I don't think it's really a conscious decision that they're making. I think it's like they look at you differently, so they're going to treat and react to you differently.
Well, because I do look back to when I was a lower belt, and I think I was probably in that same bucket. My peers, I wanted to make sure that I was still getting on them. If they went up, I was like, okay, like that guy, like, makes sense now. Or I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna hunt him now because I want that belt. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or you start to think it's like a little bit of an ego thing. It's like, I shouldn't be getting tapped out to that guy. He's just a blue belt, or he's this, or he's that. It's like, well, there's the biggest disparity in skill set, I think, in anything is always the biggest near the top. And I look on it that way, like all around America, for the most part, a high school diploma is a high school diploma, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's probably better to have a high school diploma from some elite private school that costs like $20,000 a year to go to. But for the most part, a high school diploma is going to get you in the front door if you want to join the military or go work at Walmart or or start going to community college.
Yes.
It's not going to give you anything else. Now, then the further up you go, like if you have a bachelor's degree in something, okay, well, where did you get your bachelor's degree?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's then you go all the way to the top, right? And you have people that have doctorates, in different disciplines. Well, I'm pretty sure that like a doctor, like if you have an MD who went to like the University of New Mexico, for example, he's probably a decent, competent doctor, you'd like to think. Now, I'm sure a guy who went to medical school at Stanford University or Harvard probably, maybe not necessarily, but probably has a little bit of a higher standard. And it's just like that. Belt, well, we all know lots of black belts. And then there's like Gordon Ryan or Marcelo Garcia. They're probably a little bit better than most of the black belts that you and I know.
Yes. I know what you mean about that.
Yeah. So, you're going to have the higher up you go, the bigger the level of disparity is,
I feel like it starts, especially like some blue belts, have been blue belts for 8 years, right? So then by the time those guys hit purple, it's like that's where I feel like you start to notice that, like you said, just it's when people start hitting purple, and then you start seeing the differentiation between,
Mm-hmm.
And there are absolutely levels to it, ceilings based on your region and how many tournaments are in your area and what schools are around you and etc.
Yeah, and how many people you have to train with. That was the problem I had for years. Like when I was stationed in Maine, it was a very remote area, and I trained jujitsu, but it was like I trained jujitsu basically the same 7 people years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with very rarely, like we'd have somebody drop in or whatever, or we'd go away somewhere, we'd like and drop into a gym. But like you're training with the same 7 to 10 people, and it's like it gets to the point where it's like, you know what I'm going to do, I know what you like to do, I know what I have to be careful. And once in a great while, you're going to surprise me with something like, shit, I didn't know she did omoplatas. Like, what the hell is that about? Maybe, I'm just saying that as an example.
Whip an old one out the old pocketbook.
Yeah. As opposed to if you're training with like 30, 40 different like adult students on a pretty regular basis, and then maybe some of them are spreading out and getting contaminated or getting, some ideas from other people, you get a whole bunch of stuff thrown at you and you got to stay on your toes.
And I like that.
You're going to have to learn to capitalize on stuff and defend different stuff that you didn't have to deal with before.
And I love that you talked about the fact that you started at 36 years of age, because I feel like there's probably a lot of people listening right now that are like, I'm just you hear people like, I'm just old. It's like, doesn't matter. Like the time's going to pass anyway. Right.
Yeah.
Like might as well.
What do you want to do with it? Do you aspire to be, to do jujitsu? I mean, let's put it this way. Jiu-jitsu is going to mean different things to different people, and it's a vehicle to do different things for different people. Like I first encountered jiu-jitsu as a way to do my job better and basically beat people up and keep myself safe. Yep. And then it turned into where, I compete, I teach it, I train it. It became my life. And it also, like one of the other things about it, whether you may never become a world champion, but I guarantee you you're going to get better at it and you're going to develop an understanding. But the biggest thing I'll tell people is it's a tough sell, because the people who need it the most and who's going to change their life the most are often the hardest ones to convince to try it. For example, if you take a guy who, let's say he grew up wrestling through grammar school and high school, and then he joined the military, went to the Marine Corps, and he was in the School of Infantry, and he got out of the Marine Corps and he got a job somewhere. If he finds jiu-jitsu, he's probably going to love it, and it's probably going to make his life better. But I submit this to you. Let's take a mom who's 115 pounds, never did anything athletically growing up, like no team sports, no nothing. Mm-hmm. She's got self-confidence issues, and she's afraid by herself, and she doesn't have a whole lot of friends. How much is jiu-jitsu going to change her life? It's going to change it 300%. Compared to the last guy, it's going to change his life 10%, 15%.
Yep.
So that's the thing. And I always say, like, forget about the jiu-jitsu aspect for it. I'll tell you what for me, I think of all the wonderful people that have made my life better that I never would have met any other way if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu. Like, that's how I met you.
So true.
Jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't know you even exist, and you wouldn't never even heard of me.
Oh, so true. It's so funny. Like I remember we were talking about that when you were up. It's like, look at us. We're such a funny crew here. We got the Russian spy, Brandon. Yeah. We got the New Mexico Border Patrol man. We got the Latina. We're a fun bunch of nuts.
It's amazing how it brings different people together from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I love it. And now, so like, are you? I know you're still. Are you teaching mainly kids classes? Or are you starting to do more adults classes?
I'm doing an adults class on Thursdays.
Heck yeah!
Thursday here.
Heck yeah!
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and that's actually something might as well like throw in there as an instructor. Obviously, we all love kids, right? But what would you say the difference is how you feel after teaching a kids class versus after teaching an adult class?
In some ways, the kids are a lot easier, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, like kids, you have to overcome the fact that some of them aren't there for the right reason, and that's not their fault.
Yeah.
Some parents just use this place as for daycare.
Yep.
And fortunately for us, that's here in New Mexico, that for me has been like the exception rather than the rule. But like I said, it's not that kid's fault. And I've managed down through time to take people that have a kid that was basically dumped there for daycare and getting that kid. I mean, that's the challenge to me as an instructor. It's like, okay, I got this kid who doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
His parents dropped him off. How can I make him want to engage in this?
Yes.
Because it's easy to just teach a class and not try and suck him in,
It's true.
How can I get him to engage in it? Now, so adults, like with adults, like there's other challenges and that are completely different. Like they're self-motivated. They drove themselves there. Nobody dragged them there and dropped them off and, gave them a juice box when they picked them up. But you have to convince them what you're teaching is worth their time.
Oh, you're talking about the why, the what ifs, the but.
Oh,
Yes.
You're going to get a little of, and also then you got like some people that want to see like, okay, well, is this proof tested? Like, are you going to show me something that is actually going to work? You know, do I have to? It's like, really, do I have to choke you out in a triangle to show you that my triangle's good and that you're sexy with what I'm telling you, you know, or you just want to try it, you know? So, like I said, adults offer their own challenges compared to kids. It's different. You know, some people don't have the temperament for the other ones. You know, we've seen instructors that are great with kids, but they're not very good at dealing with a challenge from an adult student, like somebody who directly challenges your authenticity or your authority or your knowledge. They just like they're non-confrontational people.
Yep.
It doesn't mean they're not good at jiu-jitsu. They just don't like having to, you know, be at some point you have to be in charge. You're in a leadership position, whether you want to or not.
So true.
Or they're really good at dealing with children who you can deal with like little kids on a one-on-one basis.
So true. So true. And I found that for me personally, being a small female mom who's not a world champion or a competitor, I obviously get a lot of that. And every time I had to decide how to address it based on how much time was in the class and whatnot, the whys, the what ifs, it's like, all right. So I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Well, I mean, this has been a really fun catch up. I know you got to get going at jiu-jitsu. I really appreciate you hopping on, and it was
my
really
pleasure.
Cool
I'm always happy to help you out, and I'm hoping to. I'll hope to once I get things calmed down here a little bit, I'll make a trip to California and go visit you again.
Oh yeah, that'd be super fun. Yeah, let's do it, and then maybe we could go get some shooting and all that fun stuff. So.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Well, I hope everybody has a blessed afternoon. You two have fun at training, Jamie. Thank you so much for coming in and chit-chatting with me. I very much appreciate you.
Anytime. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, everybody have a good day.
Take care.